The day the sky darkened. For centuries, humanity had looked to the stars and wondered, are we alone? That question was answered in the early hours of a quiet Tuesday morning. The first alert came from the Deep Space Observatory on Europa. At precisely 4:32 UTC, sensors picked up an anomaly at the far edge of the solar system. Something enormous had emerged from hyperspace. The readings were so absurdly off the charts that technicians assumed a system malfunction. But as the data poured in, the reality became undeniable. Something was coming. Within minutes, the International Space Defense Network, ISDN, went to full alert. The system AI cross-checked every known celestial object, ship signature, and artificial construct in recorded history. There were no matches. The command center on Earth came alive with frantic energy. General Elias Carter, Supreme Commander of Earth's Defense Forces, stood before the massive holographic display, his face illuminated by the shifting patterns of tactical data. The incoming fleet was beyond comprehension. Thousands of ships moving with terrifying precision. The sheer scale dwarfed anything humanity had ever built. Admiral Naomi Sato, head of the orbital fleet, stared at the projections in disbelief. This can't be real. But it was. From Luna Base to Mars Orbital Command, every military installation in the system received the same orders. Maximum readiness. A message from the alien fleet arrived shortly after, compressed data packets filled with mathematical sequences and linguistic keys. As Earth's top xenolinguists scrambled to decode it, the meaning became chillingly clear. Surrender. Submit. Assimilate. For a long moment, there was silence in the control room. Then Carter exhaled, slow and steady. They think we'll just roll over. Admiral Sato's voice was sharp. They don't know who we are. Carter's eyes locked onto hers. Then let's educate them. He turned to his comms officer. Send a response. Full spectrum broadcast. Every frequency, every language we have. And make sure it's heard. The officer nodded, fingers flying over his console. Moments later, Earth's reply echoed across the void. We are humanity. We do not surrender. The first move. The alien fleet hesitated. For the first time since their arrival, their perfect formation wavered. Analysts noticed subtle shifts in their battle lines. Adjustments, as if recalculating something. This was humanity's first clue. For all their overwhelming power, these invaders had never encountered a species like us before. Every conquest they had ever waged followed a pattern. A species was given a choice: surrender or be annihilated. And every time, that species made the rational decision. But humans had never been rational about survival. A history lesson. Carter and his team knew they needed more than words. They needed to show these invaders exactly who they were dealing with. Within the hour, a massive data transmission was prepared and broadcast to the alien fleet. It was a history lesson. Not the polished, noble version found in textbooks, but the raw, unfiltered truth. They saw footage of human wars. Trenches filled with mud and blood, cities reduced to rubble, mushroom clouds rising over scarred landscapes. They watched as humanity clawed its way back from every disaster, every extinction event, every catastrophe. They saw the impossible victories, underdogs defying the odds time and time again, the unbreakable will of those who refused to kneel. They saw men and women climbing the highest mountains simply because they were there, crossing oceans in wooden boats, launching themselves into the abyss of space with nothing but determination and reckless curiosity. The final segment of the transmission was simple. We have never lost a war for our survival. We do not intend to start now. The standoff. For the next 7 hours, Earth held its breath. Social media exploded with a chaotic mix of doomsday panic and defiant humor. Artists painted murals of humanity's greatest moments. Hackers flooded the networks with memes mocking the invaders. Children were tucked into bed with stories of human resilience. And above them all, the alien fleet hung in silence. Then, without warning, Their formation shifted again. A new signal came through, an open diplomatic channel. The Galactic Empire, for the first time in its history, was hesitating. Because for the first time in its history, it had encountered something it did not understand. Something unpredictable. Something human. And the war had only just begun. Humanity's answer. The alien fleet hung at the edge of Mars' orbit, their formation shifting in subtle, almost hesitant movements. They had sent their demand. Humanity had refused. And now, the galaxy was waiting to see what would happen next. In the heart of Earth's strategic command, General Elias Carter stood motionless before the massive holographic display. The war room was buzzing with frantic energy, officers relaying intelligence reports, analysts dissecting every movement of the alien ships, and strategists debating the odds of survival. Admiral Naomi Sato, her arms crossed, exhaled sharply. They're stalling. Why? Carter tapped the console, zooming in on the enemy fleet. They expected immediate surrender. That's what every species before us has done. His voice was steady, but his eyes burned with determination. Now they don't know what to do. The first strike. A sharp alert cut through the room. Alert. Hostile LUNCH DTTCTED. The holographic display lit up as dozens, no, hundreds, of small, sleek enemy ships broke formation, streaking toward Earth's outer defenses. The fleet had made its decision. Admiral Sato's response was instant. All orbital platforms. Fire at will. Within seconds, the silent darkness of space erupted into chaos. Earth's defensive satellites, designed for deep space security, roared to life, unleashing a storm of kinetic railgun rounds, laser arrays, and experimental plasma bursts. The alien fighters, sleek and agile, weaved through the firestorm. But they weren't untouchable. Explosions bloomed in the void as human weapons found their mark. But for every enemy ship destroyed, more slipped through. The battle was just beginning. The nature of humanity. Carter turned to his lead strategist, Commander Rajpatel. They outmatch us in tech. What do we have that they don't? Patel's fingers flew over his console, scanning battle data. Then he smirked. Unpredictability. He pulled up a simulation. Their movements, patterned, calculated. Even their attack waves are mathematically precise. They're playing a game of probabilities. Carter understood instantly. Then let's break their calculations. He opened a direct line to the fleet. All ships, listen up. Standard formations are out. I want irregular, chaotic movements. Unpredictable attack patterns. Give them a puzzle they can't solve. Within minutes, the nature of the battle changed. Human pilots, trained to adapt, to improvise, to think, started flying erratically. Some diving straight at enemy formations before breaking off at the last second. Others cutting their engines and drifting before reigniting at unpredictable angles. Even ground-based defenses started adjusting, firing at where the enemy didn't expect. The aliens hesitated. Their battle algorithms were failing, and for the first time, their forces began to fall back. Message from the void. Then, another alert. Incoming transmission. Galactic Empire. The war room fell silent. Carter glanced at Sato. They're talking. She nodded grimly. It means they're worried. The transmission came through as a series of translated words, synthesized into a calm, yet firm voice. Your resistance is illogical. Your survival is improbable. Surrender now, and your species will be integrated. Carter didn't hesitate. He stepped forward, voice steady. You don't understand humans. We don't fight because we think we'll win. We fight because we refuse to lose. A long silence followed. Then the alien fleet shifted again, this time moving into a full invasion formation. They had made their choice. And so had humanity. Preparing for war. Earth's skies darkened as every military installation activated emergency protocols. Warships launched from orbital docks, their engines burning blue as they sped toward the battlefront. Civilian space stations were evacuated. Factories switched to wartime production overnight. On Mars, Colonel Aria Vaughn led her ground forces into reinforced bunkers, ready for planetary defense. On the Moon, engineers armed the experimental railgun arrays, humanity's deadliest planetary weapon, untested in real combat. Across Earth's networks, people braced themselves. But fear wasn't the only thing spreading. Something else grew, something more powerful. Defiance. Social media exploded with messages of unity. Hackers infiltrated enemy signals, spreading human war anthems and old battle speeches across their frequencies. The Mars Gazette published an article titled, "Let Them Come," and within hours, the phrase was trending worldwide. This was no longer just a war. It was a statement. The last warning. Admiral Seto turned to Carter. "We're ready." Carter looked at the transmission feed, knowing the aliens were still listening. He gave them one last message. "You have made a mistake. You believe we are weak because we have never fought you before. But we have spent our entire history fighting the impossible. We don't fear extinction. We don't fear loss. But if you come for us, if you force our hand, then you will learn a truth no empire has ever survived." He leaned in closer. Humanity does not lose. The war had begun. The first battle of Mars. The Galactic Empire's fleet moved with terrifying precision. As their capital ships entered high orbit over Mars, their landing craft began deployment, descending toward the planet's surface in perfect formation. The invasion had begun. From her command bunker beneath Olympus Mons, Colonel Aria Vaughn watched the enemy's movements on the massive tactical display. Mars wasn't just a colony, it was humanity's first real test in interstellar war, and she wasn't about to let it fall. She turned to her officers, her voice sharp and unyielding. "We knew this was coming. We knew they wouldn't just back down. But we are not defenseless. We are human. And that means we fight smarter, we fight dirtier, and we fight to win." Mars' last stand. The enemy dropships, sleek and black like predatory birds, pierced through Mars' thin atmosphere. Their weapons glowed with an eerie blue light as they fired precise plasma bursts, clearing landing zones for their ground forces. But as they descended, Mars struck back. From underground launch sites, dozens of hardened railgun batteries roared to life. Massive slugs, traveling at hypersonic speeds, tore through the enemy ships before they could land. The first wave was obliterated mid-air, their wreckage crashing into the Martian dunes. Yet, the Empire was vast. Their forces were endless, and they adapted quickly. The second wave came faster and lower, using the wreckage of their fallen as cover. Their ships landed in controlled bursts, disgorging alien soldiers in tight formations. Tall, armored beings with glowing visors and weapons that hummed with deadly energy. The Martian surface became a battlefield. The human advantage. The Xener, as intelligence analysts called them, were powerful. Their armor repelled most conventional gunfire. Their weapons could melt through solid steel. And their discipline was unmatched. But they weren't ready for humanity's way of war. Colonel Vaughn's forces fought with guerrilla tactics, using the very landscape against the enemy. They lured the Xener into narrow canyons, where their heavy weapons became useless. Then, with carefully timed explosives, they collapsed the walls, burying entire squads alive. Martian miners turned snipers, using rail-assisted rifles to punch through enemy helmets from kilometers away. Small squads with stealth suits ambushed supply lines, cutting off the Empire's reinforcements. The Xener had never faced an enemy that refused to fight on their terms. And it was working. The Moon strikes back. Back on Luna Base, Earth's last line of orbital defense, Admiral Naomi Seto had been waiting for this moment. The Moon's experimental railgun platforms had been a controversial project. Too expensive, too dangerous. But now, they were humanity's ace in the hole. As the Galactic Fleet repositioned to reinforce their ground invasion, Seto issued a single command. Fire. From the Moon's surface, Massive electromagnetic accelerators discharged their payload. Tungsten rods the size of skyscrapers accelerated to near-orbital speeds. The result was devastation. One of the Empire's capital ships, a monolithic structure spanning kilometers, shattered on impact. The kinetic force alone was equivalent to a nuclear detonation. Another enemy warship lost control and spiraled into Mars' atmosphere, breaking apart before it could escape. For the first time, the Galactic Empire suffered true losses, and they did not take it well. The cost of war. The Xenos responded with ruthless efficiency. They unleashed weapons never seen before, gravitational imploders that crushed entire Martian outposts into singularities, neuro-warfare pulses that scrambled human electronics and disabled cybernetic enhancements. Entire sectors went dark. Colonel Vaughn's forces held the line, but with every passing hour, casualties mounted. The Xenos were adapting, learning. The next assault would be worse. And Earth knew it. Humanity's final warning. On Earth, General Carter received the grim reports. They had inflicted unprecedented damage to an empire that had never known failure. But they would not win a war of attrition. It was time for humanity's final warning. Carter ordered a message, broadcasted across every channel, directly to the Galactic Empire's leadership. You came here believing we were weak. You were wrong. You thought you could conquer us easily. You were wrong. But there is still one lesson you have not learned. He took a breath, then spoke the words that would change the course of history. We have not yet begun to fight. The Empire's dilemma. For the first time, the Galactic Empire faced a paradox. They had never lost a planetary invasion before. They had never encountered an enemy that refused to surrender. An enemy that fought with a blend of strategy, chaos, and sheer audacity. Their high command convened in secret. These humans are unpredictable, dangerous. If we crush them, the cost will be high. If we retreat, we show weakness. If we negotiate, they gain power. But even the greatest empire in the galaxy could not ignore the reality of war. The Xenos generals prepared their final assault, and humanity prepared their final stand. Humanity's last stand. The battle for Mars had reached a critical point. The Xenos, the Galactic Empire's elite war machine, had never encountered resistance like this before. Humanity, with its ingenuity, adaptability, and sheer defiance, had bled them dry. But the Empire wasn't beaten yet. Inside the command bunker beneath Olympus Mons, Colonel Area Vaughn stared at the holomap with grim determination. Enemy forces had shifted tactics. Instead of brute force attacks, they had begun targeting supply lines, communications relays, and key infrastructure. The Empire had learned from humanity's tactics, and now they were using them against us. The fall of Olympus Mons. The first sign of the Xenos' final offensive came in the dead of night. The Martian sky ignited as the Empire unleashed their ultimate weapon, orbital singularity strikes. The effect was catastrophic. Entire regions of Mars collapsed into themselves, consumed by miniature black holes before evaporating into nothingness. Olympus Mons, the greatest stronghold on Mars, cracked apart as the ground beneath it simply ceased to exist. Vaughn's command bunker trembled. Dust and debris rained down as explosions rocked the underground facility. The power flickered, the air filled with the deafening sound of steel groaning under pressure. A soldier stumbled into the room, blood trickling down his forehead. "Colonel, we've lost Olympus Mons." The Xenos. There. A deafening explosion cut him off. The bunker's emergency lights flickered red. The screens that once displayed Mars' defensive lines now showed only static. The ground shook as if the entire planet was screaming in agony. The Ghost Fleet rises. Admiral Naomi Sato knew the war had reached its breaking point. The moon's railgun defenses had held their own, but the Galactic Empire had adapted. Their ships now deployed kinetic countermeasures, dispersing incoming projectiles before impact. The Earth Defense Fleet had been crippled, and reinforcements weren't coming. But Seto had one last trick up her sleeve. Deploy the Ghost Fleet. Across the dark side of the moon, something long hidden awoke. The Ghost Fleet, a classified fleet of warships equipped with experimental cloaking technology, had never seen real combat. Some in the military thought the project was a myth, a desperate gamble in an unwinnable war. But now, it was humanity's last chance. As the Galactic Empire's fleet repositioned for the final attack on Mars, hundreds of invisible human warships decloaked in unison. And they struck. Missiles and railgun slugs ripped through the Empire's ranks before they even knew what hit them. Stealth bombers flew between enemy formations, planting high-yield fusion bombs directly onto enemy hulls. It was chaos. For the first time in history, an empire that had ruled the stars for millennia was blindsided. The death of a god. Aboard the Empire's command dreadnought, High Marshal Corrickson watched in disbelief. This wasn't war. It was insanity. Humans fought like no species they had ever encountered. They didn't just adapt. They thrived in chaos. Corrickson turned to his officers. Deploy the Annihilation Protocol. The room fell silent. Even the Xener, warriors of the Empire, hesitated. High Marshal, that would. I know what it will do, Corrickson growled. His 4 glowing eyes burned with fury. Do it. The Annihilation Protocol had only been used once before, thousands of years ago. It was not just war. It was extermination. Earth's gamble. General Carter, back on Earth, watched as the Galactic Empire's final weapon came online. A superweapon, a gravitational pulse generator designed to collapse an entire planet into itself. They weren't just trying to win. They were trying to erase humanity from existence. Carter took a slow breath. There was only one card left to play. A desperate, unthinkable option. He activated a secured line. Code Omega-7. The AI hesitated. Sir, this will. Execute. Operation Ragnarok. Across the solar system, hidden nuclear platforms came to life. For centuries, Earth had sworn off planet-cracking weaponry. But deep in the darkest parts of military strategy, someone had prepared for the worst-case scenario. They called it Operation Ragnarok. Thousands of subterranean nuclear warheads, hidden beneath Earth's surface, launched in unison, not toward Mars, not toward the fleet, but directly at the sun. A deliberate chain reaction, an artificial solar flare on an unprecedented scale. The message was simple. If humanity falls, we take the entire solar system with us. The Empire's choice. On board the Xener High Command ship, the War Council froze. The human race was insane. They had just threatened their own star. The sheer audacity of it, the idea that they would rather destroy everything than submit, was unlike anything the Empire had ever encountered. The High Marshal clenched his jaw. This is not a war we can win. The order was given. For the first time in its history, the Galactic Empire retreated. A galaxy changed forever. The war ended not with a decisive battle, but with a choice. Humanity had done the impossible, forcing an empire that had never known defeat to back down. As the Xener fleet withdrew, battered and broken, Admiral Sato watched from Luna Base. We did it, she whispered. But the cost had been unimaginable. Mars was in ruins. Earth had come within seconds of doomsday. Millions had died. And now, the entire galaxy knew that humanity was not to be trifled with. Because there was one truth the Empire would never forget. Humans don't lose wars. We survive them. The war wasn't over. The Galactic Empire had retreated. Their warships, once an unstoppable force, limped away from the solar system, battered and humiliated. Humanity had done the impossible. They had survived. But victory came at a cost. Mars was in ruins. Entire colonies had been wiped from existence. Earth's defenses were crippled, and the Ghost Fleet had exhausted its last trick. Humanity had won the battle. But the war was far from over. The silence before the storm. Back on Earth, General Carter stood in the war room, watching satellite footage of the aftermath. Fires still raged on Mars. Broken space stations drifted in orbit. Millions of lives lost. And yet, the enemy had retreated. Not because they were defeated, but because they had been forced to reconsider. Carter knew what that meant. "They'll be back," he said. Beside him, Admiral Naomi Sato nodded grimly. "And next time, they won't underestimate us." A war council had been called. Humanity needed to decide what came next. Did they rebuild? Did they fortify the solar system? Or did they take the fight to the enemy? But before those questions could be answered, a new message arrived. And it changed everything. A message from the abyss. Deep within the wreckage of the Empire's fleet, a lone transmission beacon remained active. It pulsed with a distress signal, but not one meant for the Galactic Empire. This message was not from the center. It was something else. Human analysts worked for hours, decrypting the strange transmission. At first, they thought it was a distress call. But as the message unraveled, a horrifying truth became clear. It was a warning. The message came from another race, one that had fought the Empire long before humanity ever existed, a race that had been erased from history. The fragmented data told a story. The Xener were not the top of the food chain. There was something far worse in the galaxy, something so terrifying that even the Galactic Empire had spent millennia keeping it buried. The Empire's true enemy. High Marshal Corrickson, now stationed in deep space, was furious. His fleet had barely escaped the war with humanity intact. His empire had suffered the greatest humiliation in its history, but his mind wasn't on Earth anymore. He had just received the same message, and he understood what it meant. Humanity had done something no other species had ever managed. They had survived a full-scale war against the Empire. They had forced a retreat, and in doing so, they had attracted the attention of something far worse. A race so ancient, so powerful, that even the Empire dared not speak their name. They were called the Vatheric, and they had just noticed humanity, a galaxy in chaos. The Empire wasn't the only one listening. Across the galaxy, other species, conquered civilizations, resistance fighters, and secret rebel factions picked up the same distress call. The news spread like wildfire. The Galactic Empire had been wounded, and now, the balance of power in the universe was shifting. For the first time in thousands of years, the Empire wasn't untouchable. Other species began to whisper of rebellion. Some even looked to humanity, the species that had done the impossible, as a symbol of hope. But hope wasn't the only thing spreading. The Vatheric had been watching, and now, they were coming. Earth's final decision. On Earth, the War Council argued late into the night. The Galactic Empire would return. That much was certain. But now there was a greater threat. General Carter slammed his fist on the table. "We cannot just wait for them to come. We need to take the fight to them." Admiral Sato shook her head. "And do what? We barely survived their first attack. Our forces are stretched thin. Earth needs time to rebuild." "We don't have time," Carter growled. "The Vatheric are coming. The Empire knows it. We need to decide. Do we let them fight alone? Or do we strike first?" A silence fell over the room. Then, for the first time since the war began, the President of Earth's United Council spoke. "We were never meant to be part of this war," she said quietly. "But now we are." She looked at the holomap, displaying the ruins of Mars, the battered remnants of Earth's fleet, and the vast unknown space beyond. And she made her choice. Begin preparations for the first human expedition beyond the solar system. The end of the beginning. As the decision was made, ships across the solar system began to mobilize. For the first time in history, humanity was no longer fighting just for survival. Now, they were fighting for their place among the stars. And as the first ships left orbit, headed for the unknown, they didn't know what they would find. But one thing was certain. The galaxy had underestimated humanity once before. It wouldn't make that mistake again. Beyond the solar system, the decision had been made. Humanity would not wait for the enemy to return. They would go beyond the solar system, not as wanderers, not as prey, but as warriors. For the first time in history, the people of Earth, Mars, and the scattered colonies united as one. They had survived the Galactic Empire's first attack. Now, they would take the fight to the stars. But as they prepared for war, one question remained. Would they be ready for what waited beyond? Project Dawnfire. At the heart of Earth's response was Project Dawnfire, a classified mission that had been secretly planned for years. Even before the war with the Galactic Empire, some human leaders suspected that one day they would need to fight among the stars. Now, those suspicions had become reality. A fleet was being assembled, one unlike anything humanity had ever built before. The Ghost Fleet was gone, its tactics already exposed. Now, the Dawnfire Armada would be born. New warships, built from scavenged enemy technology, enhanced with human ingenuity. Weapons unlike anything before, reverse-engineered from the wreckage of the Empire's warships. Elite soldiers, the best of the best, hardened veterans of the Mars assault, cybernetically enhanced commandos, and AI-assisted pilots. Earth's factories burned with relentless energy. The skies above were filled with new ships under construction. The people of Mars, still mourning their losses, refused to be left behind. They provided war machines, resources, and the will to never be conquered again. But as they built their weapons, they knew that weapons alone would not be enough. The Riftgate. While Earth's military rushed to prepare, another team was working on something even more ambitious. For centuries, the Galactic Empire had used hyperspace lanes, ancient routes carved through the void by civilizations long forgotten. Humanity had no such paths. But Dr. Elias Monroe, one of Earth's greatest physicists, had a theory. The Empire's faster-than-light drives weren't just engines, they were keys. They locked onto something far older than the Empire itself. Something buried deep within the galaxy. And if Monroe was right, then humanity wouldn't just travel through space. They could rip open their own doorways. The first jump. In the heart of Luna's hidden research labs, a ship unlike any other had been built. It was called the ESV Pathfinder, the first human ship capable of independent rift jumping. Unlike the Empire's massive warships, the Pathfinder was small, fast, and unpredictable. Its mission: to scout ahead, find the enemy before they found Earth, and uncover the truth behind the Vatheric. And its crew: only the bravest, only the most reckless, only those willing to risk everything for humanity's survival. The Vatheric awaken. Light years away, deep in the void, something shifted. The Vatheric were not like the Empire. They did not conquer for resources. They did not demand surrender. They consumed. For thousands of years, they had waited, hibernating, sleeping in the cold abyss between galaxies. They had seen the Galactic Empire rise and fall. They had ignored its petty wars. But now, they had seen something new. Humanity's war against the Empire had been nothing more than a flicker of light in the darkness. But in that flicker, the Vatheric saw something they had never seen before: defiance. And that defiance intrigued them. Slowly, their great black ships, larger than moons, began to stir. The cold void of space shivered as something ancient and hungry awoke. The Vatheric did not send diplomats. They did not negotiate. They simply moved. And their first destination was Earth. First contact. The Pathfinder was the first to encounter them. The ship had barely completed its first rift jump when its sensors screamed with warnings. The crew, led by Captain Ren Carter, the son of General Carter himself, had trained for the unknown, but nothing had prepared them for this. The void outside the ship was wrong. No stars, no light, just an endless abyss swallowing everything in sight. And then they saw it. A Vatheric vessel. It was not like the warships of the Galactic Empire, elegant, structured, built with purpose. No, this ship was alive. It shifted, pulsed like a heartbeat. Its surface was not metal, but something else, something that absorbed light, devoured energy. And then, without warning, it spoke. Not in words, not in sounds, but in raw thought. Human. The crew froze. Every screen on the ship flickered. Their minds ached, filled with something ancient and overwhelming. The voice was not a greeting. It was a declaration. You are different. Ren Carter clenched his fists. He could feel the alien intelligence pressing against his mind, studying him, peeling away his thoughts like layers of paper. He gritted his teeth, and in the true spirit of humanity, he fought back. His mind burned as he forced his own thoughts outward. The alien presence staggered, as if surprised. You do not submit, the voice mused. Ren grinned, even as pain lanced through his skull. Damn right we don't. For a long moment, there was silence. The alien ship stared at them, if such a thing was possible. Then, without a word, it vanished. No explosion, no hyperspace jump, just gone. But before it disappeared, it left behind a single message in their ship's systems, a set of coordinates, a warning, and a challenge. The decision. Back on Earth, the War Council listened to Captain Carter's report with horrified silence. They're watching us, Carter said. They don't see us as enemies. Then what do they see us as? Admiral Sato asked. Carter looked around the room. Something new. General Carter leaned forward. And the coordinates. Ren exhaled. It's an invitation. A heavy silence fell over the war room. The Votheric had noticed humanity. And now, they were waiting. The President of the United Council stood, her expression unreadable. Then we go, she said. If we are truly alone in this galaxy, then we must find our place in it. She looked at the stars beyond the war room's great window. We will not hide. We will not run. We will answer them. And with that, humanity's greatest journey began. Not just a war for survival, not just a war against the Empire, but a war for their right to exist. And the galaxy would never be the same again. The final stand. Humanity had been tested. First, by the Galactic Empire, a force that had ruled the stars for millennia. Now, by something far older, far deadlier. The Votheric were not conquerors. They were not tyrants. They were the end. And they had set their gaze upon Earth, the gathering storm. The United Human Defense Fleet, now called the Dawnfire Armada, assembled in the cold void beyond Mars. Never before had so many human warships gathered in one place. The Titan-class battleships, bristling with railguns and plasma cannons. The Eclipse stealth frigates, cloaked in experimental quantum fields. The newly formed Riftborn Corps, cybernetically enhanced warriors capable of thought-speed combat. The fleet stretched farther than the eye could see. Yet, against the Votheric, it might not be enough. Even with the Rift Gate allowing humanity to move through the stars like the Empire once had, even with their stolen technology, this enemy was something else entirely. The first battle. The coordinates left by the Votheric led to a dead system. No planets, no moons. Just a black void. It was a graveyard of civilizations past. Ruins of worlds floated as shattered husks, torn apart by some force beyond comprehension. Then the Votheric came. They did not appear in flashes of light or hyperspace trails. They simply manifested, great, writhing behemoths of darkness, their ships shifting like living nightmares. Human scanners failed. Sensors glitched. Even the most advanced AI systems refused to comprehend what they were seeing. The enemy did not send warnings, no declarations of war. They simply attacked. The first human ships vanished before they could even fire. Not destroyed, not exploded, just gone. For a moment, humanity faltered. Then, Captain Ren Carter's voice rang across the fleet. We hold the line. And the war began. Fighting the unthinkable. The Votheric did not fight with lasers or missiles. Their ships bent reality, warping spacetime itself. Human ships were torn apart by unseen forces, their crews screaming as the void swallowed them whole. But humanity adapted. The Rift-born Corps pushed their minds into overdrive, countering the enemy's psychic assaults. Cybernetic pilots overloaded their ships, using pure speed and erratic movement to dodge attacks that should have been impossible to avoid. For every human ship lost, 2 more fought harder. For every soldier that fell, another took their place. Then the Dawnfire Armada unleashed their trump card, the Hellfire Protocol. The Hellfire Protocol. Humanity's greatest strength had always been its ability to destroy. The Votheric had never faced an enemy that fought to the very last breath. As the black monstrosities tore into their lines, humanity struck back with weapons of pure, unrelenting chaos. Neutron lances, designed to collapse stars, now fired at the heart of the enemy's living ships. Singularity bombs, detonating miniature black holes inside the Votheric forces. Eye-driven kamikaze drones, swarming the creatures like mechanical locusts, ripping them apart from within. For the first time in millennia, the Votheric hesitated. The turning point. The battle raged for days, stretching across the void like a storm of fire and shadow. Then, deep within the wreckage of the fallen Votheric ships, scientists aboard the Pathfinder made a discovery. The enemy was not just fighting. They were testing, studying, learning. And that meant they had limits. Dr. Ilias Munro, the mind behind the Rift Gate, sent a desperate message to the fleet. They're adapting. If we don't finish this now, they'll evolve beyond anything we can stop. There was only one option left. The final gamble. The Votheric throne ship had remained at the edge of the battle, watching, waiting. It was larger than any human vessel, its form shifting like liquid shadow. General Carter made the call. All remaining ships, full assault. We take it down, or we die trying. The entire fleet converged, throwing everything they had at the throne ship. Railguns burned red-hot. Plasma torpedoes streaked through the void. Even as more ships were lost, more pushed forward. The throne ship began to crack. Then the Votheric overmind spoke. We were wrong about you. Ren Carter, his ship barely holding together, smiled through bloody teeth. Damn right you were. Then he fired the last neutron lance straight into the heart of the throne ship. The void screamed. And then the Votheric were gone. Not destroyed, not defeated. They simply left, as if they had seen something in humanity that they did not expect, something that terrified them. Aftermath. The legacy of humanity. The battle was over. The Galactic Empire had once ruled the stars. Now it lay in ruins. The Votheric had once consumed civilizations without resistance. Now they had fallen. And at the center of it all stood humanity. Not as victims, not as prey, but as something entirely new. The stars belonged to them now, and the galaxy would never be the same again.